What's going on YouTube? Stanley Man, aka 12 Gauge 365. Just a quick video, just a quick breakdown video real quick. So we had one of the best fights of this year already, even though we are early in 2026. We had one of the best fights we've seen all year as far as boxing goes. And we saw a crazy upset. Now, of course, I'm talking about the Subriel Matias versus Dalton Thunder Smith. That was a crazy fight, in my opinion. It was one of the best fights. I mean, honestly, I think it should be top contender for knockout of the year. I think this is one of the biggest knockouts we had. And like I said, we're only 11 or 12 days in. So yeah, man, it's definitely, boxing is looking like it's being poised for a good season. We saw a lot of good heavyweight action happen in Germany as well with Agit Kabayel, and he, of course, he scores his sixth straight knockout, and he's definitely a tough contender, and we'll be excited to see what comes of his next opponents, man. What becomes of his next opponent? We'll see what happens with him. I think at this point you definitely have to give him, you definitely got to give him somebody with a name. And he took out Frank Sanchez, then he went back and took out Big Bang. And he's been on a roll, man. He's been on a roll, and it's kind of weird to see how crazy he just kind of shot up here in the past couple of years. But either way, man, let's get to this. Let's get to this card that we just saw with this junior welterweight or junior lightweight. I think it's junior welterweight. But either way, anyway, we got Dalton Smith scoring a big knockout of Subriel Matias. I mean, this is a fight that was definitely poised for Matias to be. Like I said, man, everybody knows about Matias, bro. Like he is one of the hardest punchers that we've seen in recent years. I mean, he generates a lot of power in short pockets and short spans and short spaces. So it's definitely one of those fights that, like I said, I'm more of an MMA guy. So when we say styles make fights, it's definitely like, yeah, styles can make fights. But when we talk about boxing, I mean, it's so, it's not necessarily looked at as in depth with boxing as it is with MMA, because I think a lot of thought goes into these matchups when we think about the MMA aspect of it. But when boxing comes up, I mean, there's thousands upon thousands of boxers. So when these matchups gets made, a lot of times, the opponents of, there's really only one big known and one big name fighter. And a lot of times when you see this, you see a heavy favorite go, and we see these heavy favorites, and we see these weird fight odds and stuff happening. So when this fight was announced and when this fight was happening, I had to educate myself on Dalton Smith. And Dalton Smith is somebody, he is a really tough opponent. I mean, the guy came in undefeated, and he was coming in, and he was fighting he was fighting a tall order. He was fighting a tall order with Matias, and it was, I mean, you could just tell from the start of the fight, when the call outs, I mean, when the announcers was calling the names out, you could just see like everybody was kind of, the odds were stacked against Smith. And everybody loves an underdog story. The guys from England, everybody knows how tough the British community is when it comes to boxing. But it was just one of those things to where Dalton Smith was, he came there, and it looked like it looked like he was coming there to lose. The crowd was there for Matias. There was a big Puerto Rican crowd. It was in New York, so it was a big fan reaction for Matias. And we saw from round one, I mean, this was a fight that Matias was supposed to win. And honestly, in my opinion, this was a fight that Matias should have won. I'm not trying to, no shade to Dalton Smith. He's definitely a tough opponent. I mean, watch any of his highlights. He has one of the prettiest and one of the crispest right hands in the business. You don't really get much better than that. But Matias, this is one of those things to where you have to separate yourself from being a good prospect to being a great prospect. And Matias has, one of the things that separates you from being a good to a great prospect is being able to adapt and being able to adjust your defense as the fight goes on. Dalton Smith fight a very great fight. He came in and he fought lights out. I mean, he did everything he was supposed to do, and the results speak for themselves, man. I mean, the man came in and he turned up, and I'm pretty sure he gained a lot of new fans that night, and I am one of them. I didn't know too much about Dalton Smith, but I did know about Matias. And even though Matias had 2 losses on his record and Dalton Smith was coming in undefeated, I mean, look at the body of work of both of these guys. I mean, Matias puts in a lot of work, and so does Dalton Smith. But like I said, Matias is the more showcased fighter in this situation. He was definitely the A side, and Dalton Smith came in and he turned it up. So from round one, like I said, this is a fight that Matias should have won, and he should have been able to adjust his defense, being the veteran in this situation. But it's just one of those things where if you do not adjust, then the fight can go south really, really quick for you. But the thing is with this fight is it was a very back and forth fight. It was one of the best fights of the year, and I think it should stand as I think it should still be considered the best fight. I mean, like I said, man, it's 2026. The boxing is poised for a great year this year, and we're gonna have a lot of good matchups coming. I can't wait for the Shakur Stevenson versus Teofimo Lopez. I can't wait for that fight to come up. I mean, I know Rolly Romero, I think he's supposed to be getting thrown in the mix. Ryan Garcia is about to fight Mario Barrios. That's gonna be a very tough fight for him. But yeah, man, we got a lot of action. We got a lot of action coming up. So yeah, so like I said, man, from round one, Matias should have already had the game plan down. Dalton Smith comes in less than 30 seconds. I think around 30 seconds in the first round, Dalton Smith catches him with that crisp right hand that he always catches people with, that sneaking loop right hand. He catches Subriel Matias with that. Subriel Matias eats it. And I think this was probably the beginning of the end. It was the start of the beginning of the end, in my opinion, for Matias, because I felt like when he felt that shot and saw like, okay, it was hard, but I can take this. That's the kind of thing with Matias' defense. He tries to pull you into this dogfight, stand in the pocket slugfest. And, usually Matias, I mean, he's big at 140, and so is Dalton Smith, but Matias is very big at 140. And you can kind of see, like, when he throws his shots, a lot of people can't really walk through a lot of those. And, that's why he's 23 wins with 22 of those being knockouts. I mean, he has right around a 90% knockout percent. I think over a 90% knockout percentage in all of his wins. I mean, the guy he is a killer, and he hits you with the short, chopping, very powerful, almost robotic like punches. I mean, it kind of looks like a rock'em sock'em robot almost. That's kind of how I like that's what made me a fan of him, because when you look at his fights, a lot of his short chopping uppercuts and short hooks that he throws in the pocket, it's almost robotic like, and it looks reminiscent of a Rock'em Sock'em Robot. Like I said, man, look that up if you're one of those young cats, and for the older generation, y'all know what that is. So, but either way, man. So Matias gets hits with that crisp right hand. Dalton Smith pretty much takes the first round. He pretty much catches him with that right hand and kind of beats him in and outside. It's round two, you see Subriel come out a little bit more aggressive, hit him with a couple stinging jabs, and kind of play. Now he starts to pull Dalton Smith into his game plan, and we see everybody. I mean, both the guys are playing the inside game, throwing punches into the pocket. I mean, Dalton Smith is getting a lot of good exchanges. He's catching them with body shots. He's catching them with the looping lead right hand, well, with the lead with the rear right hand, and he's catching them with the lead check hook as well. That's a punch that I feel like Dalton Smith was landing that I don't think Matias was really paying that much attention to, and I don't really think the announcers was paying much attention to. And it's one of those things. It's just like I said, man. Sometimes boxing can be so political to where it's so obvious that it's definitely scripted to who they want to win the fight. And that's why I love it. That's why everybody loves a great underdog story, just for the people who just goes off script and they just do what is not expected, because you can see the announcers was just, everybody was just kind of riding high on Matias. I mean, the crowd came here for Matias. The announcers came there for Matias. I feel like the ref was the only one that was playing the fight evenly, and he was playing the fight he was playing the fight fairly. He was doing it 50-50. Anytime either one of those fighters was getting too close, he was breaking it up. I really like the fact that the ref was really letting them play in the pocket, and he wasn't letting Smith or Matias really play into the whole, let me just, throw a couple of punches and hold on you. He really let these guys bang it out, and that's why I feel like this should be one of the best fights of this year, even though we have 11 more months to go, 11 more months of boxing to go. This is definitely my top five, my number one fight of the year already. And then, like I said, man, a lot more fights to come to see if anything knocks that off. But like I said, man, round two, I think Matias takes round two. Round three, I feel like Dalton Smith kind of edged it out a little bit more. We see a very big exchange at the end of round three. Not really too much to say. You see Matias, like I said, like kind of catching him with those inside punches. I feel like the refs, I mean, not the refs, but the announcers was being a little too biased for Matias, because I feel like Dalton Smith was doing just as much damage as Matias. I mean, Smith was doing just as much damage to Matias as Matias was doing to Smith, everybody was both people were landing those punches inside of the pocket, but I just feel like since this was a Subriel Matias rollout, everybody was kind of it was more emphasis being put on what Matias was doing, which okay, it's okay, but you got to give Smith his respect too as well because he was really in there and he was really banging, and we saw at the end of round three like it was really gonna be a fight. So round four, same thing, man, inside pocket play. Beautiful, beautiful fight. Sweet science is being displayed by both of these guys. But if you can, like I said, if you paying attention to those lead hooks that Smith was throwing, and he's every now and then he's sneaking that looping right hand in. He's just slowly chipping away at Matias, and Matias has this really unfortunate perception that he can walk through everybody's punches, and he's kind of having his half guard up, hands are not really all the way up on his temple, kind of right here, and he's kind of catching he's catching the punches, and he's eating the punches, and he's still walking through and doing his damage. But I just feel like Smith just kind of chipped away, and by the time round five came around, Smith catches him with a really nice body shot in the pocket again, and you know the fight keeps going on after that, and you see Smith land. Like I said, Smith has one of the best right hands and one of the crispest right hands in the business. He catches him with two straight back to back, and I feel like Matias was. I mean, I feel like it was kind of a delayed reaction for Matias, but like once he realized like it was already too late. So boom, Smith lands another third right hand, knocks Matias down, and then you see the ref gave him his respect, especially being that this was supposed to be his fight, his rollout, and his crowd, and his home field advantage. The ref still gave him a chance, and he was just a little bit too wobbly when he came up. I feel like maybe he could have gave Subriel another chance to fight. Maybe let him go out on his shield since he's a knockout artist, and usually a lot of times when you see these knockout artists, they just want to go out on their shield. If they're gonna lose the fight, they want to be put out completely. But shouts out to the ref for, thinking about his health and going ahead and calling the fight early. And I feel like Dalton Smith, he just came in with his, came in and went off script. I feel like Matias had all of the plot armor coming into this thing, but like I said, man, every now and then you get this fighter that just comes off script and just goes off script and kind of beats the odds. Like literally, he literally beat the odds. And like one of the best things about Dalton Smith with him coming in and being undefeated, and now he's just got a win over a very tough opponent, probably his tough opponent to this date. The sky's the limit for him. Like now he's in the 140 division. I mean, like I said, like there's he's been in the 140 division, but like there's so many more fights. Like I said, like there's so many more boxers, and that's what the difference is between MMA and boxing. That MMA, there's only a few entities in MMA, but the main entity obviously is the UFC. But there's a lot more condensed fighters in the UFC as opposed to just the general boxing population. There's a million fighters that you can match him up with, but in the UFC, excuse me, but in the UFC with the win like that, that puts you pretty much in title contention. And there's a million titles to be tossed around in boxing, whereas with the UFC, the title is the title. So, that's kind of the difference in there. But either way, nevertheless, all respect to Dalton Smith, man. He's got a lot of fights he can pick and choose from. So hopefully he gets some great and decent matchups. We'll have to see how that goes for him. And we'll keep this thing going. So the next thing I do want to review is the UFC 324 that's coming up. Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett. I can't wait for that one. There's a lot of banger fights on that card. So we'll just have to see how that one rolls out. But until then, I want to say, as always, stay safe, stay blessed, and stay dangerous. We will see y'all on the next one, man.